I'll just quickly go through what we do at Ausgold and what we're focused on. And in that introduction, our Katanning Gold Project is our focus, and we've been doing a lot of work over a number of years, building up the current resource base, which is 1.2 million ounces. But we're about to release an updated resource in the next month or so, and that's based on over 30,000 metres of new drilling. A really refined and updated geological model, which has been much more predictive, particularly with our high-grade lodes, and you'll see that with some of our recent results. The other thing that we've been employing on this deposit is downhole EM, as well as airborne EM, and that's been working really, really well, much better than you'd expect for a gold deposit, and there's a number of reasons for that. What we're aiming to do with this resource update is get to a point where we've got a critical mass for a standalone operation. And I think we're getting much, much closer there, and it'll be really interesting to see how we progress over the next year as we start to make that move as a developer. Beyond our current resource position, we've got over 4,000 square kilometres. Now that area in southwest part of the Yilgarn has started to become really interesting, not just for gold, but with Julimar up to the north of us, we've also started having a look for nickel and PG within our ground position. So there's some interesting things happening there as well. So I'll take you through the presentation. I think it's really a story that's evolving as we speak. As you know, I'm a geologist, really small but well-qualified board, a lot of experience in the resource sector. The top 40 shareholders own about 60% of the shares on issue. Directors hold 8%, and our major shareholders, including Dundee Resources, hold 7%, and Tim Kestel sitting there 5.8%. So it's a very solid share register to build from, and you can see that with our price growth over the last year or so. So just zooming in on what the Katanning Gold Project is. At the moment, it's a 1.2 million ounce resource at 1.1 grams per tonne, but that sort of disguises the fact there's a very high-grade core to this deposit. And you can see from some of these older and even some more recent results there, which I'll show you shortly, that there's a lot more value in that, particularly in these high-grade shoots that we've been identifying. We're currently drilling. We've drilled 30,000 metres over the last year since the last resource update. We've got an Archean diamond rig operating at the moment, and we're really targeting these geological positions, but also focusing in on these downhole EM targets, which give us a much more precise relationship with the high-grade zones. The resource update is going to come out in the next 4 weeks or so. We've got all that resource position sitting on granted mining licenses, so it's actually quite a good development story, supported by good infrastructure. Katanning Township's only 30 kilometres away, 275 kilometres from Perth. In the COVID world, that's a really, really good selling point. So it's a local project, very easy to get to, and we don't suffer the disruption some other areas have had. And it's centred in a very large tenement position that has high prospectivity. Just a quick snapshot of that tenement position shown in yellow. You can see that some of the majors have started playing in this area as well, with Anglo American pegging to our northern boundary with 10,000 square kilometres. I'll just point to the Wood and Nilling project too. I'll just quickly talk to that later in the presentation, but we've been exploring that as a Lode-mafic intrusive complex that has some PGE associations. However, our real focus is on the gold story, and I'll take you through that now. In terms of timeline, I expect to see lots of drill results coming through. We started back at work on the 3rd of January, and we've been busy drilling with 2 rigs on that. We've also got a couple of near resource area targets, including the Jinkas North area. We're getting towards being able to drill in our rifle range prospect. I'll point that on the map, but it's a very high, I think, high priority target within that. And then we've got a number of regional targets. Again, the resource update's coming in March, and then that will be a catalyst for further mining studies. So the resource, as it stands, this is what we put out in 2019, and you can see the main focus is this Jinkas lode here. Has most of the contain gold in it. A new discovery, we only really just conned on to in 2019, but now we've extended Jinkas North over 1.3 kilometres, so it extends up there now. It's not currently in this resource, so that will come in March. There's also a number of other targets like our Jinkas North area, that gap in the resource and the rifle range. So there's two things that are coming as well. They won't make it in this resource iteration, but we're likely to have an update through the year. And this is a long sectional view of that same block model. You can see that there's that big gap in the rifle range. The Jinkas North area here, there's potential for underground, which is not currently in our resource. So there's a lot more to come into this resource as we further understand it. And this is just one more for the geologists. There's a gravity map showing that major structure that controls the KGP and the gold mineralisation there. So what is this geological model? It's a folded ore body, and what we see is these chute-like high-grade zones in the fold hinges of these lodes. They're fairly predictable along strike, and luckily they've got a strong correlation with magnetite and pyrrhotite, which makes them visible in geophysics. So we've been using that to help target our drilling, and that's really improved our hit ratio with recent drill campaigns. And you can see this is the Jinkas South Lode, and some of the high-grade hits that we've been seeing in this zone here, and one of those EM plates. So looking at in plan view, these are all new results and haven't been included in the current resource. We've been actively drilling along this 1.3 kilometre strike length. Our original discovery hole was 814, which was the 26 at 6.6 grams there, and we've been able to extend that over a kilometre strike length there. It remains open to the south as well. So this is already becoming a major portion of this new resource update, as well as being able to understand these high-grade chutes, which will become important in the way we estimate the new resource. I think the better estimation techniques will also have a substantial impact on the overall grade as we better characterise these lodes. So looking at, again, in long section, you can see the Jinkas lode, which is in the current resource. That's about 460,000 ounces. And a Jinkas South lode, which is new. It's a parallel lode, a recent discovery. It remains open along strike and down plunge. So that's looking like a potential underground target with some recent relatively high-grade results sitting in this zone here. And you can see these EM plates, which are these blue boxes here, which have helped guide us into this lode and has really provided the controls on drilling. So what we tend to do is drill along strike. You can see we've stepped out along there, and then we follow up with downhole EM, and those targets provide, the characterisation and then the infill drilling that supports the resource estimation. So there's been a lot of work into that targeting methodology, and it's really helped our approach and really focused our drilling. So just stepping out away from the resource now, so the central zone we just spoke about is this zone here, and that's where you expect to see a lot of the news coming through in the coming weeks. However, we've got a number of other high priority targets, such as our Lucan prospect to the south here. We've just put some reconnaissance drilling in here, and it shows some economic intercepts quite close to surface. This is about 7 kilometres from Dingo. So it's a very large mineralised system, and I think the point of this slide is really to show that beyond our current resource position, there's a number of opportunities to further expand this resource. Again, areas such as our Burong Dacetine trend. Dacetine itself sits as about a 40,000 ounce resource. It remains open along strike, and you can see that there's a major gap there. We've just been conducting soils on that at the moment, and we're going to follow up with an air core program and then potentially RC drilling to support that. But just before the COVID lockdown in March last year, we drilled the metre at 6.5 grams. Unfortunately, that closed off, and since then we've been focused on the resource drilling, but we'll come back to this area because we think there's some real potential to start converting that into, I guess, a greater resource inventory. And just, I guess, zooming out, we're sort of zooming out at levels here. Here's our main Katanning Gold Project, Dacetine, Burong, and stepping away within easy trucking distance is about 30 kilometre driving distance from here, Nanakup Bridge, Bullock Pool. These were discoveries by Dominion back in the early 2000s. And you can see they've identified very large geochemical anomalies, put some drilling in there, got some results. I think our advantage here is we've spent a lot of time working and characterising the ore body at Katanning. So we've got an advantage when we come back and have a look at these. We've got planned drilling as part of a co-funded EIS program. So we'll put some RC and diamond drilling into that in the next few months, and really see if we can do a bit more with it than our predecessors. And I think there's some real opportunities for the future to build up a larger resource inventory. So looking at broadly on our Katanning Gold Project, I think really just highlighting here, it's a 4,000 square kilometre ground package, which is massive. We've also tied up, I guess, over 130 kilometres of strike length, which we have identified 46 gold targets on. We've also started now looking sort of independently at potential for PGE and nickel sulphide mineralisation. This area out here, which we have called now the Wood and Milling Project, it includes Reds Hill, Mine Hill, which is about here. We've just recently conducted some drilling on. I'll just go back to that slide. You can see there that there's a large gravity high which relates to these laid mafic intrusives. So we're starting to look at that. That's gravity, so it's a density contrast. We've mapped there, and you can see these zones of elongated, highly magnetic rocks, which are magnetite vanadium mineralisation that sits on top of those intrusives, very high up in those layers. And that's been tested before in the past just for vanadium magnetite to about 30 metres. What we came back and had a look at is we noticed that some of these areas here, such as Martling, had elevated platinum palladium in past drilling, up to 70 ppb. It's not economic, but it really does tell you that these things are fertile and require further work. And that's what we've done. We've just put in 17 RC holes. Again, this was part of a co-funded EIS program with the state government. And we've also tested Mine Hill, which was, in the past, had some gold mine shafts on it from the 1920s. So there is a lot going on in this area. And as an aside to our main gold project, there's some real opportunities to identify something there. So I guess to summarise very quickly, Ausgold's looking at it's a 1.2 million ounce gold project. It's looking to be upgraded in March, and I think that will be a substantial upgrade because of the amount of work we've put in it in terms of drilling, but also the better geological understanding, which will have a large impact in the overall grade and how we estimate this deposit and the gold within that. It still sits at a relatively low enterprise value when consider that large resource base, and that's only going to increase with the predicted uplift in the current resource. And beyond that, we've got a number of targets to further expand that resource, and I think that's quite an exciting part as an exploration geologist, is that we already know we've got a large resource position, but that's got a lot of opportunities to grow within the current resource, but also regionally. And then we've got a few wildcards like our Wood and Milling project. So thank you.